Well, we got to welcome Chris Castellani on to the Morning Woodward Show.
Welcome back, Chris.
Hey, guys. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh, and I see you got a new Family Guy poster up in your room.
Yeah, man. I got skewered by some people in your comment section last time I was on because I didn't look like $1 million at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I shined my shoes. I brought the sport coat out, and I got dressed to impress, man.
I like it. We got the sport coats and everything today.
Exactly, yeah.
Man.
Looking good.
I woke up like this.
We got Beyonce of Tigers baseball on with us right now.
Wow.
So, Chris, last time we talked to you, we were full of hope. We were full of promise. Everything was exciting. Akil Baddoo was on his way to be the next great Tiger. And since then, we've won 3 games.
Right. Yes. Well, it's a combination of water finding its level and some bad luck. I mean, look, the Houston series, as fun as it was, I did not believe was a true reflection of this team's capabilities. I thought they played an unbelievable series. Look, what it comes down to is that the flaws that were apparent coming into this season have come out in full force over the last several series. I mean, it's a poorly put together offense. It's a poorly constructed offense. Your best hitter is Jeimer Candelario, whose OPS is solid at like 769 or something, but that's still slightly above average. The starting pitching, for the most part, has been fine, though Turnbull and Fulmer in the series against the Red Sox did not look good. But Boyd's been good. Mize, I thought, had a great start in Boston. And really, I think one of the biggest problems is that the bullpen just has not held up at all. And this was a bullpen that was not good a year ago, but I felt like showed enough promise, at least, to make you think, all right, well, they got Soto and Garcia and Farmer, and some of these guys have been okay. Like, Soto's been okay, but a lot of these guys have struggled a lot. And it seems like every time one issue is fixed, another one arises. If the pitching is great, then all of a sudden they're getting shut out 2-0. If the hitting is great, then they're giving up 12 runs. There's just it's a lack of consistency that I think is going to stick with this team, sadly, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and going into the season, our bullpen was kind of supposed to be our strength just because we have so many weaknesses. And, that's been the Tigers' Achilles heel for what, the past 16 to 20 years is our bullpen?
I was going to say three decades. Yeah, around there. Yeah.
Someone's commenting right now, Chris, saying, what's wrong with this dude? Why is he drinking out of a glass cup and not a Fiji water bottle? They're ripping on you.
I'm just I used tap water this morning, so sorry.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, exactly. I know. High class here, man.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on Albert Pujols being let go, being
released from the squad.
Released from the squad. Do you think that's kind of a step that the Tigers should take with Miguel Cabrera, considering they're both kind of in that late end of their career slump right now?
You can't. They're not going to do that, and they shouldn't. The guy's been, because Pujols to the Angels is not what Miguel Cabrera is to the Tigers. Because Pujols is that obviously bad contract, but we're talking about a guy in Miggy who he had his best years here. Cut him, I think, would be pretty brutal. At some point, because he's in the midst of an 0 for 27 streak, which is far and away the worst of his career. At some point, They will have to have the conversation, I feel like, because they got him for 2 more years. Even if you're not competitive, you cannot run him out there for 2 more years, man. I just don't see it. They will have to have that conversation about how do we set this up so that Miguel Cabrera can have a graceful exit. I think it would be, especially given the fact the team's not any good. If they were good, it might be a little bit of a different story, but you can't go up to him right now and say, we're releasing you with a team that's going to lose 100 games. I think they've wanted him to finish his career here, but at a certain point, you do have to look at what's best for the organization and what's best for the legacy of the player, because we're coming up on 4 or 5 years now, really, in which Miguel Cabrera has been about replacement level. And Miguel Cabrera is not a replacement level player. He's one of the best hitters I've ever seen. So they're not going to release him. But at a certain point, with guys coming up through the system, you may just not have a spot for him. And you're going to have to sit him down and try to figure out a way to gracefully allow him to exit without there being any hard feelings. It's going to be a tough conversation. And it's a conversation that was bound to happen given the length of that contract. Now, nobody expected him to have the kind of injuries that he's had and to deteriorate the way he has. So, now, I can't imagine them being as harsh as to release him. He's done too much here. He's been too successful. But eventually, they're gonna have to have that talk.
And one thing that's going to affect is Spencer Torkelson, who they're trying to convert him into a third baseman, which really I don't know if that's going to work out. But if they get rid of Miggy, they'll have an open spot at first base. Do you think they should stop trying to breed Torkelson as a third baseman and just get him prepared to be our future first baseman and focus on hitting?
I don't, because analytically it makes the most sense. Third base is a premium defensive position. In today's day and age of baseball, what you're looking for is not necessarily the best hitter. It's the most value you can get out of a player in terms of wins above replacement and all those wonderful analytical stats that nerds like me pay attention to. Third base is a premium defensive position. And if what you get out of Torkelson at third, even as an average defender, is more than what you would get from him as a solid defensive first baseman. If you want a prime example, look no further than what happened with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He came up through the Blue Jays system as a third baseman. Everyone knew this guy's a monster hitter. Will he develop with the glove? Well, he never really did. And now he's playing first base, and he's a good first baseman, and he's one of the best hitters in baseball. You can always move him back, so the idea of trying never bothered me. I have serious doubts. I mean, he was primarily coming up through at Arizona State as a first baseman. Right. But the idea behind it doesn't bother me. But you will have to get to a point where you got to make that decision and say, okay, is this viable for the future? Because look, Jamer is a average to above average third baseman on his best day. He's developed as a third baseman. He can play first, but I think that right now one of the issues I think with Torkelson is that he's maybe a little bit too focused on trying to switch to being a solid defensive third baseman, and he struggled a little bit. It's only 10 at-bats. I'm not freaking out so far at the minor league level. So, yeah, there will be an opening there at some point. I have no problem with the attempt, but I still have serious doubts about whether or not he'll translate into a good third baseman at the major league level.
Yeah, another young guy that we got in the system, because obviously that's what we need to focus on right now is who's in our system.
Right.
We can't really focus on who's on the field right now because I don't believe they're going to be playing for us in 2 to 3 years. There may be a couple pieces left over, but the rebuild on the rebuild has begun. Riley Green, how do you see him performing, and do you see us moving him up maybe just to get some run by the end of this year to the major league level?
I'm higher on him than I am on anybody else in the organization. I think if you were to ask who's the one guy in this system, including the pitchers that we've seen at the major league level so far this year, that I think is going to be a star, I would say I would go with him. When he was drafted, everyone knew the bat-to-ball skills were there, the athleticism was there. I think as a defender, he's actually probably exceeded the expectations so far. I mean, there were rumors when he was coming out of high school, will this be a guy that you got to move to first base? All the tools are there, the intangibles are there for this guy to be a 5-tool player. As far as this year, it would have to be a substantial jump. He's in Double-A right now. He'd have to perform really well at Double-A and then really well at Triple-A just to get called up here this season. I don't think so. Do I think that by the end of this year he'll be good enough to play at the major league level? I do, but that's where you get into the nonsense of service time manipulation. When do you call a guy up? You can try to get an extra year on that rookie deal. I think we'd be far more likely to see him early next season, but I think in general, he's the one guy in the system right now where no one in the organization is upset with his progress or disappointed in his progress. I think that everything's moved along really solid with him. Yep. He showed promise in spring. He showed promise in summer camp last year. Hit a grand slam the other night in Double-A. I think if there's one guy really with superstar potential in the organization, I think it's him. I mean, we're young guy, only 20, 21 years old right now, and I mean, he's determined to get here and help this team start winning games. Like, I think one thing that this franchise and the city in general has kind of lacked over the last several years is kind of a face of Detroit sports. I think if there's one guy with the kind of capability to do that, it would be him. I'm higher on him than almost anybody else's.
So in 2003, the Tigers set the record for major league losses at 119. I'm sure you were a Tigers fan at that point, but you've been doing your reporting heavily for the past 3 years, so I'm not sure how much you watched the 2003 team, but if you could make a comparison between that team and this team, which team is worse, I guess, is the easiest question to ask.
Man, it's tough because I would say offensively, they're worse than 03, honestly, because the 2003 team had Dimitri Young, who was a top 20 hitter in baseball that year. Now, they didn't have anybody else. I guess maybe you could say there's a little bit more depth here, maybe, I guess. But
right.
Look, I'd still go with the 03 team because that team was the pitching core there was awful. I think if you play this team in a 7-game series, I think this pitching would probably shut them down. I do think that because of how stable some of the pitching has been, I don't see this being a team that is losing a historical number of games. The biggest difference is, the 03 team, as bad as they were, that needed to happen. And now 3 years later, they're in the World Series. You look at this team, you got to say, all right, who here can stick around long enough so that the next time we make the playoffs, some of these guys will be on the roster, and only time will tell. And that rebuild had been going on for a while. I guess it technically kind of began after that season, or maybe during that season with Dombrowski getting there. We're several years in, so I guess if I had to say which team is more frustrating, probably this one, because they shouldn't be this poor this deep into the rebuild.
Yeah, when I look at that 2003 team, the one thing I can take away from them is, like you said, Nate Robinson's on that team, Bonderman's on that team,
Right.
Craig Monroe on that team. So, even though those guys aren't the guys that took us over the top in 06 to get us to the World Series, they contributed to getting us there. When I look
Right.
at this roster, I'm not seeing a ton of guys that are going to contribute down the road to get us there, and that's what kind of scares me about the position that we're in right now.
No, completely, because nobody wants to go through 3 more years of a rebuild. Really, if you were to ask who on this team will be on this roster next time they make the playoffs, maybe 2, maybe 3. I would say Mize, maybe Gregory Soto, maybe Turnbull, and besides that, I'd say maybe Jamer, but I feel like he'll be a free agent by the time this team's in the playoffs next.
Right.
And for us to be this deep into it and to still be asking these questions, it is cause for concern.
Yeah, so how are you doing, man? I know you do post-game reports on all of these games on your Twitter account, and, obviously you do a great job with that, but, we talk about Dan Miller all the time being the voice of the Lions,
Yeah.
and how, the Lions can be 0-15, but that 16th game, he's showing up, and he's giving us energy, and he's, delivering real emotion. How do you stay up during a season like this?
Well, you got to be authentic. If I'm disappointed in something, don't hide your disappointment. Dan Miller does a great job, but Dan Miller has 10 bad days a year covering that team. I have 10 bad days in a week watching this team. We have 4 months worth of bad days, over the last season. So no, look, there does come a point of genuine disappointment where you're just dying for something good. And that's why, whenever there's that kind of nugget of hope, that's why I ran with the whole Akil Baddoo thing for a couple weeks, just because you don't have a whole lot to cheer about. The way you got to look at it though is, look, I have been lucky enough to have a platform where people listen to what I have to say, and you can't. Yeah, the team's bad, and they're gonna be bad, and it's not fun talking about a bad team, especially a bad team that you love, that you've seen be successful, that you want to be great, but. The ability to do what I do and talk about what I talk about in this day and age is, it's a privilege. You can't take that for granted. And yeah, I would like the team to be better. And I've been asked multiple times, what are you going to do with these post games when the team is good? And I say, I don't know, because I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it since I've started doing these videos. But that day will come, and I think the idea is that it will be a lot of fun for a lot of people. To see him be competitive, and right now it's a hard time. It's a really difficult time, and there are those days where it's tough to talk about him and it's tough to rip him, but you fight through it, because guess what? The next day there's going to be another ball game, and it's another opportunity to do something special. And does that always happen? Maybe not, but that's what's great about baseball.
Oh, man, just wait till they start winning. Because we talk about that here at Woodward Sports, too. We see our numbers growing every single week, every single month, and we're like, man, all of our teams are in the gutter right now, too. Just imagine to when people are really interested in the teams, they're seeking out information, they can't get enough of hearing about their favorite team. That's when people like you, you're going to see your Twitter go absolutely insane, because you've established yourself as a great voice of the Tigers, and then once people want to search out the Tigers, you're just going to be the man.
I was just about to ask him that. I'm just sitting back and listening to you guys talk. I'm like, man, I'm learning a lot. Chris, just out of your, opinion, just covering the Tigers, how far away do you think the city of Detroit is from seeing quality baseball again? Like being able to go down to Comerica Park and be on Woodward and have pride wearing that old English D. How far away you think we are from that?
Matt, it's tough to say. I would love to give you a concrete answer there. I think this rebuild would be going a lot better if I could give you a concrete answer.
You'd be the GM.
I mean, it would be.
You should be the GM.
Right, exactly. Because, a lot of GMs have, 4 or 5 year plans. Well, guess what? We're on year 4 and 5 right now. And I think that with the right leadership, I think they could be competitive. I'm not saying great. I'm not saying making the playoffs. Competitive within 2 years. I don't have a lot of faith in the current administration. I don't have a lot of faith in the current GM. I don't have a lot of faith in ownership right now. I know that Avila's contract, I believe, I could be wrong about this, I believe runs out at the end of next season. Given the fact that they have, essentially tanked for 5 seasons, they have built up a relatively stable core in the farm system. I think you could bring somebody new in, and within a year or two, we could get this thing rolling. But a lot of things are going to need to go right. You're going to have to start spending money, first of all. That's yep. 1A and 1B. You got to start spending. I know there's the whole Moneyball principle, and teams like the Rays and the A's are successful playing small ball. That doesn't happen here. And the richest team in baseball is the Dodgers, and they're in the playoffs every season. That's going to have to happen in Detroit. You got to spend money to be good. So that's step 1. And then 2, making sure those contracts make sense, and you're not overspending the way you did on Miggy and the way you did on Jordan Zimmerman and the way you did on V-Mart. And then it's going to be about supplementing those players with a really good core in the farm system, which I think they do have. But not all these guys are going to pan out. Not all these guys are going to end up being top-tier major league players. It's going to take time. I think with the right leadership, we could be looking at 2 years. But it's disappointing that I can't give you more of a concrete answer there. But I like to know. I don't know. Really, it's a lot of it falls in the hands of management and ownership at this point.
Yeah, because the thing for me is the Detroit Lions, they went ahead, they went through a rebuild, and they went and got a new GM. The Detroit Pistons, they're going through a rebuild. They went and got a new GM. Now the Tigers and the Red Wings, same ownership, but even the Red Wings, they're going through a rebuild, and they got Yzerman in. What's the deal with the Tigers? How come they won't go ahead and push Avila out that back door?
Corey, that's a hell of a question. I've been asking myself that same thing for 4 years. I don't. The extension they gave him 2 years ago made 0 sense to me.
Yeah.
Outside of, if the number one thing you have to hang your hat on is that you've drafted top 5 picks, man, anybody can do that. If you suck for 5 years, yeah, you should be getting some talented players. That's the goal of the draft. That's the purpose. Why it exists. But besides that, no, to me there was one owner in baseball that would have given him that extension, and he's the owner of Detroit. They're friends. Chris McCoskey wrote an article that I disagreed with the core of the piece, but him saying that the headline was the Tigers aren't going to fire Avila. I think he's probably right. I don't see them getting rid of him at least for another year or two. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what honestly he's done to kind of earn his standing here, and yeah, that's the thing is you look at
people.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. He's been around forever. He has done, and people will hate me for saying this, he has done good things for this organization. He hasn't done it as a GM, but when he was Dombrowski's right-hand man, there's a lot of people who give him credit for some of the moves that Dombrowski made, but it hasn't worked out as a GM. And you look at what other teams in the city are doing, I think that, while nobody is good right now, I think the approval rating of Yzerman and of Troy Weaver and of Brad Holmes so far is substantially higher than what Al Avila's is. And Al Avila's, in his 5th, 6th year trying to rebuild this thing. And the other guys are early in their tenures already with probably brighter futures. That's the most disappointing part. Look, if I was if I was running things there, things would be a little bit different in terms of the personnel. But you just kind of at this point got to hope and pray that they find something, because I don't have a lot of faith currently in the current administration. I hate to do the doom and gloom stuff, but it's how I see it. I wish things were better.
Yeah, no, I think we all do. And we're talking to Chris Castellani, huge Twitter contributor for the Detroit Tigers. He's doing post games every day. And so we wanted to bring him on to talk baseball because we haven't had an opportunity to talk a lot of baseball this year. You know, early in the season, we had the Badu story, but outside of that, it's been a struggle to bring up Tigers baseball on this show. So I'm glad to have somebody like you who's so passionate, who's watching every game, who can give us a little more insight than the average fan at this point. And we're talking about Avila. Yeah, to me, it's just where's the basement? Like, how far are they going to let this thing go before they're like, all right, maybe we got to make some changes? Because if this year's an indication that it's not enough, I don't know how far they let it go, and that's kind of scary as a fan.
And I don't see how they can. He said that there's possibility of Avila sticks around maybe another year or two. I think Tigers fans would be mutiny if he's around here another year or two.
Yeah.
It feels like, I think, and that's one thing I did say in one of my post games, is that I think the bow of patience is broken at this point. Like, whatever goodwill they had in terms of trying to build this thing up, all right, we'll give you a few years, it's done. This year should be the ascension year. The year where you go from, okay, we haven't been very good, and we're still not great, but we're slightly better. And for things to not only be just as bad, but arguably worse than they've been over the last several seasons, what are we doing here? I mean, like, you can only tank for so long before people just stop caring. I mean, that's what happened in the 90s. People stopped caring about Tiger baseball. They were losing 100 games every year. I don't want to see that, but yeah, I don't know. As long as he's here, I'm going to have serious doubts.
All right, now the most serious question I could ask you. Who is your favorite character on that poster behind you?
Oh, Peter. If I had to do a power rankings, it would probably go Peter, Quagmire, Joe, and Cleveland. But that's why I got that flag, because those are probably my 4 favorite characters. The best moments of those show to me come from them just sitting at the bar making jokes. So yeah, that would probably be my power rankings on that flag right there.
What I love about Chris is anything he touches or talks about, he's so passionate about.
Right.
You gotta be.
Yeah,
man.
Even the worst of the worst teams, and that's what I respect so much, is that, like we mentioned earlier, you started out your brand of being Chris Castellani on Twitter and social media when the team was the worst, and that's why we love having you a part of the team, because we started Woodward Sports with the teams being the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about the
ascension
when
they're
man.
winning.
Yeah,
Easy
for
to start
sure,
it when they're winning. But yeah, no, Quagmire's number 1 on my list if I'm going on that board. Like,
He's still thinking about
yeah,
it.
I am. Every time Quagmire opens his mouth, he makes me laugh. It's like Ralphie on The Simpsons. Like, I love all the characters on The Simpsons, but every time Ralph opens his mouth, I laugh. And it's the same thing with Quagmire. So that's why I put him above the rest.
Right on, man.
Well, thank you, man, for your time. Always appreciate joining us in the morning. You look smooth as hell in your suit coat.
Thank
your
you.
hair's looking good. Room's looking
Thank you.
clean.
Clean.
Nobody's dogging you in the chat right now. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you,
I
man.
appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, keep covering the Tigers like you do. I enjoy watching your videos after every single Tigers game. And one day, man, me and you will be at a Woodward parade for the Detroit Tigers winning the World Series.
That's the goal. Just give me one before I die. That's all I need, man. One before I die.
I
we'll
don't know
good.
what we're gonna wait long enough for that World Series to happen, or Miggy to at least reach that 500 home run.
We'll see. Hey, whatever happens first, we'll be there for it, right?
Yep, that's right. Well, thank you, Chris, and make sure
Have
you
a good one,
follow
guys. Thank you
him.
for having me on. I'll see you around.
Yep, make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow, great insight, as you can tell. I mean, he really cares about the Tigers, and that's where we want to be, and those are the people we want to talk to. So thank you to Chris for coming on, talking Tigers with us this morning.